It is Friday, October 9th. Let's talk PlayStation. We are officially 5 weeks away from PS5 coming out, and it's really starting to feel like that. I know for a long time there, it really didn't feel like an exciting console launch, but this past week we got real pictures of the console, impressions, the teardown, a very credible leak that we'll be talking about in a second here. It really is starting to kick off, and it's about time, really, because this whole process has seemed much slower than what we're used to. But here on LTPS, we still have a lot to cover, so starting off as always, our PS Plus reminder, the October games are now live. That's Need for Speed Payback and Vampire. Plenty of time to download these games or add them to your library. Also, we have our October PS Now update. You've got Days Gone, Friday the 13th, Medieval, Trine 4, and also Rad. The only game in there that has an expiration date this time would be Days Gone. That'll leave PS Now January 5th, 2021. Although there is some crossover here, it's also a part of the PS Plus collection on PlayStation 5, so you've got two avenues depending on if you buy a PS5 this coming holiday season or if you're a PS Now subscriber currently. Now, moving on to our first news story, Ghost of Tsushima Legends. This update's finally coming, version 1.1 dropping October 16th. This will include the multiplayer component, but also some additions to single player as well. So in total, what we're looking at is custom gear loadouts for single player, also New Game Plus, and in that mode you'll see a new horse, also a new merchant that sells exclusive dies. You've got new charms, new trophies, naturally, so that's going to break up your 100% if you have that already. Ghost of Tsushima Legends, this will have 2-player story missions, but also 4-player survival missions. We knew about that. On the PlayStation blog, they detailed some of the different classes and what they do. And we're also seeing raids come after the launch of this update. So not quite with 1.1, a few weeks later is when you'll get the addition of raids. And I would imagine that that will also probably come with some other fine-tuned enhancements as well. Next up, we've got a lot of PlayStation 5 game news, so let's go over all these. We'll start with Godfall. Over on the official PlayStation website, the product page for this game now says, online play is required, PlayStation Plus is required, and this is very polarizing given that the developer Counterplay Games has already told us on a number of occasions it's not a service-based title. It is traditional in that you can play it from start to finish, you can play it alone. They do encourage to play with friends, that co-op mode. They are going for that looter slasher vibe, that's how they've described it, and we've seen enough gameplay to understand what they're trying to get across here, but they have said it's single player and you can play alone. So why would a game that inherently is single player require online play or a PS Plus subscription? We even have somebody asking over on Twitter, are we sure it's not online? And they respond, Godfall is not a service game, but does require an internet connection to play. This is so off-putting, especially for a title where there's already enough buyers on the fence about getting it day one. And when it comes to PS5 day one games, arguably Godfall is the one title we've seen the most of, so you should already have a great idea of if this is something that would interest you or not. And this may put you over the edge of not purchasing it whatsoever. I just want to know the reason. Is this like a 2013 SimCity where there is no good reason, or is the entire back-end support of this game hinging on server-side support and changing things behind the scenes, hot fixes, drops, things like that? You know, is there more of that going on? I'll be interested to see how this pans out once the game actually drops. Moving on to Astro's Playroom, the free game pre-installed in every single PS5. We recently learned some new details about this free experience from the Japan studio president Nicolas Doucet. Speaking with Famitsu, he gave us some insight about how long the game is, which about 4 to 5 hours, so pretty lengthy for what is a free experience. There's 4 worlds to explore. That's the Cooling Resort, GPU Jungle, SSD Speedway, Memory Sky. There's also a time attack mode, online ranking. It's not explicitly stated, but pretty much anytime software ships on a PlayStation console, it's now mandated for trophy support, so it goes without saying, but based on what we're hearing, this probably has a platinum trophy. Call me crazy, but I feel like they could have easily charged $10 for this and gotten away with it. Not that I want them to, but it just seems like there's a fair amount to do versus the Playroom's introduction on PS4. That was pre-installed for free, and that was our first introduction to the Asobi robots, but that was really more of a technical demo for the PS4 camera facing the DualShock 4 light bar, because it needed the PlayStation camera, and it was really only 30 minutes to an hour long. Now the VR update came, and that was more significant. Then we had Astro Bout Rescue Mission. That was a separate paid game, and that was certainly warranted, but it just seems like there's a lot to do, and I think that's great. But for our next game, I almost feel obligated to mention this one, but Bugsnax, the game that has turned into its own little PlayStation 5 meme, will be a launch title, so this was slated for holiday 2020, and there's been a lot of games that have had that holiday 2020 release window, but they've been slipping into the first quarter of 2021, or they're just barely reaching the end of the year, so coming out in December or something like that. So holiday 2020 doesn't guarantee that it's launch day. although Bugsnax for PS4, PS5, and PC is one of them. And so if you're still curious about this game, they released the voice cast, and it looks like there's a lot of prominent people actually lending some voice talent to this game, which is hilarious. If you look at the list, there's a lot of pretty big names in there, or familiar names. And this is still kind of a big mystery, but we've got some recent gameplay, and I think it's a game that would be really fun to play alongside some of the bigger titles. Now, let's talk about some free next-gen upgrades. We've got 3 new games here recently confirmed, starting with Planet Coaster Console Edition. This is launching holiday 2020 for PS4 and PS5, and when you move over from PS4 to 5, if that's how you want to do that, it will be a free upgrade, and more crucially, your park will transfer over, so that's important for a game where you could easily sink hundreds of hours into building your park, and this has been a problem for some games we've been talking about here when it comes to the upgrade process. Some games do not move save files over, so for this one, that will be the case where at least your park moves over. Not necessarily sure if that'll be a straight file transfer. They talk about uploading your park to something and then re-downloading it, so at least there'll be an option for that. Then we've got For Honor, the 2017 Ubisoft sword fighting action game. This is more of a service-based long-term game where it's got season updates and things like that, and so this will be a free upgrade as well. A lot of visual enhancements actually. You're getting improved water reflections, draw distance, shadow resolution increase, texture filtering, 4K 60 FPS. That's going to be great for this game, and so that will also be free. Your progress and purchases also transfer over seamlessly, so for something that's more server-side, that's where that makes sense. And then Outriders, this game was recently delayed actually to February 2nd, 2021. It was supposed to be holiday 2020, but when it launches on PS4 and PS5, this will also be a free upgrade. So even when it launches well into that first quarter of next year, if you're still playing on PS4, you can start the game there and then move to PS5 whenever you're ready. Next up, Final Fantasy XVI. Recently, we've had a lot of stories covering how this game is probably further along in development than most people are giving it credit for. And even last week, we were talking about how Square Enix is acutely aware of the criticism they often receive from Westerners about the development progress of this game, or really most of their games. Any major product out of Square usually takes a long time. Well, anyway, over on Square's website, for the development staff portion where they're looking for some talent on this game, it actually says, basic development and scenario production have already been completed, and we are continuing to create large-scale resources and build boss battles while expanding various development tools. In addition, most staff work remotely. Now, if you recall, Bloomberg's Jason Schreier mentioned how allegedly this game has been in development for at least 4 years minimum, maybe longer, but at minimum 4 years, and that is a significant amount of time for a AAA development, and that's assuming that no major roadblocks have come up in development or no major issues. And again, given the footage that we do have, we can see that a lot of the basic groundwork has been laid out. The game is clearly in a playable state. You've got character models, you've got cutscenes, you've got boss fights, you've got regular gameplay mechanics already established. I mean, a lot of the game looks finished in a certain manner, right? I mean, what we did discuss last week is that visually speaking, the game isn't impressive, but that's fine. The game is in development, and that's one of the reasons why Square went ahead with showing this footage rather than a teaser, because this showcases how far along the game actually is. The question still remains, what release date is this really targeting, or what release year rather? I think that's probably the biggest question we can look at so far. We certainly can't pinpoint a season for this game, what year, and 2022 seemed like a safe bet for what would be a game coming out sooner than you think, but 2021 would be really aggressive. But at this point, we'll have to wait for next year, because that is when we'll have our next major news update for this game, and based on what we hear in 2021 will really dictate just how far along they are to actually shipping this game. Moving on though, over on the PlayStation blog, Sony did reconfirm their timeline for TV virtual surround sound and 3D audio, where day one 3D audio will be supported, not just with the headset that they're selling, that 3D Pulse wireless headset where it's totally sold out, but most headsets that you bring forward to PS5, so as long as it's supported, whether it's through the DualSense's 3.5mm headphone jack, or a third-party headset that uses a dongle, or even an adapter that may account for the PS5's lack of an optical audio port. We're seeing Astro doing that for some of their headsets. As long as it works, you'll get the 3D audio experience for games that support that feature. TV virtual surround sound, this will not be ready at launch, so this will come later. This is where they'll try and simulate ambient noise around you just from the speakers from your television. That's something I really want to see how that plays out, especially for soundbars when that support comes in as well. And keep in mind that they do also want to support surround sound systems, but that is, at least right now, on the lower end of their support timeline. Next up, it looks like Sony's going to be making some major changes to the PlayStation Store on desktop and mobile, where they're going to be actually removing the ability to purchase certain content items. So there is a new store relaunch, and this email, which looks like it was sent to a development partner, mentions that the store relaunch will be October 19th, 2020, and starting October 19th for desktop and then October 28th for mobile, you will no longer be able to purchase PS3 games and add-ons, PSP game and add-ons, PS Vita game and add-ons, apps, themes, avatars. Those last three will apply to all consoles, so even PS4 apps, themes, avatars, you won't be able to download those or push those downloads to your console. Also, the wishlist feature will be discontinued, so we don't have this on PS4 itself, which we're hearing for PS5 we will, just that on desktop, this was a feature and that will be dissolved more or less. And so for the section that says what does this mean for consumers, this is a very important note. It's desktop and mobile only, so you can still continue to purchase and manage content from the platforms themselves, just that, well, for PlayStation 3, Vita, and definitely PSP, this will become infinitely, I don't know if difficult's the right word, but certainly you're taking away a lot of convenience for what was the ability to purchase this content right from desktop or mobile, right? It was very convenient. And so Sony will be doing a full relaunch for what is presumably a lot of back-end reworking to tailor the store moving forward for PS4 and PS5 content, or really just PS4 and PS5 games. It does seem a bit weird that themes, apps, and avatars aren't supported. I mean, avatars are PSN-wide. It's not specific to any platform, so those will go over to PS5 no problem. Themes are specific to PS4 right now. I doubt we'll have custom themes or themes to buy on PS5 day one, but still, that's a recent platform alongside applications, which PS5's got to have some streaming services available on day one. Might not be as much as PS4, just based off of contracts and things like that. I doubt everything's going to move over seamlessly, but that is something that people actively use on PS4 and PS5. So seems weird that they'd omit those, but really this is a convenience factor for legacy platforms. And so if you're on a PS3 or Vita or even a PSP, you can still purchase content from those storefronts. PSP, it's a lot more difficult. Now PS3 is really the only way to, or really it's just always been the best place to buy, manage, and store PSP content or transfer it over. And same with Vita. It's very convenient because right now with Vita, the store is a little broken on there. It's tough to find content. The new releases section is all messed up. And so it's not difficult, but it's just a hassle or a pain. You have to go out of your way to find content nowadays on PSP and Vita. So PS3 is like the best place to buy and store that content, but now from a PS3, you're forced to use the store there, and there's nothing wrong with that, but the PlayStation Store on PS3 runs terribly. It crashes all the time. It's super slow. So I hate ever having to go to the store from PS3. It was convenient from desktop or mobile to push downloads from there, and now you won't be able to do that. And it's expected. Over time, older platforms naturally are going to start having their support taper off, so it's disappointing news, but you can't really complain, especially for something like PSP, where technically you can still buy and transfer to a PSP natively here in 2020. For our next news story, it looks like we've got another third-party SSD that will work in PS5, and I think it was 2 weeks ago we talked about the Samsung 980 Pro, where that did have the read-write speeds for PS5. It's just that right now we're waiting for Sony to release a confirmed list of drives that will work, because it would be unfortunate to spend $200+ on something, and then for whatever reason it doesn't work on PS5. Sony was very careful to warn us, hey, don't buy anything just yet, we'll release a list at some point. So while we can look at the specs of all these drives hitting the market and saying, oh yeah, that should work, we just don't know. However, this time around for this manufacturer, for this specific drive, Western Digital has gone out of their way to say this drive is PS5 compatible. So we're not sure if that's them talking directly with Sony or if that's them just looking at what's public information right now and going, oh, we meet the specs, so we should work. But for their drive, the SN850 says it's PS5 compatible, and the pricing there would be 500 gigabytes for $150, 1 terabyte for $230, or you can go up to a 2 terabyte for $450. As I recommended in the PS5 buying guide, try and hold off as long as you can. I mean, it'll be nothing but beneficial to you, unless you really think you need that much storage on day one or a little bit after launch, but hold off because PlayStation 5 uses third-party drives. That's the best advantage we have right now, because the longer you wait, those prices will come down very aggressively. It's not going to be super cheap. You're still going to be spending some good cash to get a 1 terabyte or something, but you've got multiple manufacturers. These are parts for not just PlayStation 5 but PC, so it's a competitive space. We'll see prices come down accordingly. That's the good benefit here. And actually, as a secondary benefit from the PS5 Teardown video, we did see the bay where the SSD will go, and this confirmed to us a few things. Well, one, the bay is quite sizable, and it looks like it might even be able to accept certain SSDs with small heat sinks. Not sure how large they can really get, but it looks like most drives actually will fit in there. And so I think Sony's being overly cautious about their warning, but it seems like a lot of drives will get in there no problem. Also, like we mentioned in the video where we covered this right away on Wednesday, this would be additional storage on top of what your PS5 already comes with because the SSD is soldered onto the board. But also, this solves a problem that we saw with replacing the HDD on PS3 and PS4. I've done video tutorials on most PlayStations on how to safely do this, and they're very popular, so I still get questions today about how to do these because some people make mistakes on the process. Now, it should go without saying, but back up your data, because if you swap your HDD to another PlayStation, it's going to want to format that drive. They can't swap them interchangeably, so there's that. But then there's also the fact that when you do a fresh restore on a new drive, you need the file that includes not just the latest firmware, but also the system partition. So what a lot of people usually end up doing by accident is going to Sony's site and downloading just the latest firmware, and that's what you would use if you want to manually push a firmware update to your system if it's not directly connected to the internet. And so that's what people do. That won't work because it doesn't have the system partition, and that's what people mess up. Since this is additional storage, you don't have to do any of that anymore. And so all you need to know is how to get into the system, slide it in, PlayStation 5 will fix it up for you, and you're all good to go. Now, similar topic here, so we'll just jump right into this, but like we said, Wednesday was the PS5 Teardown. That was great to see. On Sunday, we had the Try PS5 event for YouTube Gaming Week in Japan, so Japanese YouTubers, Japanese publications got to play the system. We did a video on that, but the second part of that video was covering a UI leak that happened the night prior or 2 days before, something like that. Showed a video of the UI booting up, multiple pictures of different sections of the UI, also the PS5 stand, the upper shell, and everyone was wondering, is it real, fake? And a lot of people were leaning towards that being fake, but in the Sunday video I mentioned, look, we've seen plenty of fake UIs left and right. You can tell them a mile away, but this one actually is probably the real deal. And, well, now we know for certain that it more than likely is the real deal, because we can cross-reference one of those photos where in the top left you can see the inner portion of the PlayStation 5, and now we can look at what we saw from the PS5 Teardown. Remember, these leaked photos came out prior to the teardown. I mean, this is quite obvious. This was genuine footage of a PlayStation 5. So keep in mind, it could be a very early build. They didn't let anybody in Japan see it or use the create button, and they're manufacturing consoles right now, so they're shipping with something, 1.0 or whatever. I mean, it's pretty much a guarantee that there's going to be a day one update. That's very commonplace, and so they have all that time in between when they started manufacturing and launch to prepare all the features and finalize what's going to make it day one and what's not going to make it day one. And I think at this point, they're really just trying to finalize how to present the UI, and we're 5 weeks away, so we don't have to wait much longer. For our next news story, this is really more of a PSA than anything else because this is not unusual. In fact, it's sort of expected. But a lot of people in Europe and the UK are reporting that their pre-orders for PS5 games, the delivery timeline has been adjusted a week early, November 12th, to where the console would launch in the US or Japan. And it's not surprising because you're getting the games, not the console. The console will not get moved up a week early. The street date for that will definitely be held, or it'll be tough to see that break. But we saw with PlayStation 4, you got actually the controller and accessories and games a little bit early. And that'll be the case for Series S and X too. It's some things will come out early, like that Robot White Series S and X controller actually came out way early, so not unusual. You'll get some things ahead of time. Moving on, Sony Interactive Entertainment President and CEO Jim Ryan has stated to Korean media that he expects PS5 to outsell PS4's first fiscal year, and that seems very plausible based off of at least the production numbers we heard from Bloomberg. Now, it is important to note none of those numbers are official whatsoever. We had a report starting off saying 5 to 6 million consoles for the first quarter of 2021. Then that was doubled up to 10 million. And then the last report mentioned it was 15 million, that they scaled back to 11 million because of production yield issues. And the only time Sony ever commented on any of that is to go out of their way and say they haven't altered production numbers whatsoever in response to that last report. So there's no official numbers. But if they're even somewhat accurate based off of PS4 shipments, we already know that they are expecting to move a lot of consoles at least within that first quarter of 2021 compared to the first quarter of 2014. Now, if we look at the PlayStation 4's first year, by the end of November 2014, somewhere around there, Sony sold 14 million PlayStation 4's. So if Sony is looking to manufacture upwards of 10, possibly 15 million just for that potential first quarter of 2021, I mean, yeah, they're looking to sell a lot of these things. It looks like demand is very high, and assuming that they can make enough PS5s for that first year, I think they could easily exceed that number. Next up, we have an interesting development in why Sony's been very quiet about the PS5's launch in India. So this is something I've been approached on a few times. You know, what's going on? There's no pricing details in India. There's no commitment to launch. You know, Sony's not being very forthcoming. Well, at least what we learned recently, the revelation came out that the PS5 trademark actually was filed by an individual a few months before Sony. And they're an individual, not a company. They're not trying to release a PS5 product or a knockoff or anything like that. It looks like an individual has trademarked PS5 right before Sony, and now a third party stepped in, and the status for both of these trademarks has been listed as opposed. And so I guess there's just a dispute going on right there. Obviously, this can get very complicated because laws are different everywhere when it comes to trademarks, and so I'd imagine this guy's just doing the standard practice of parking a domain or holding onto a trademark, knowing eventually a company's going to step forward and want to use it, and then he can sell it for a few $1,000s, unless he tries to extort more money out of them, but that might go south for him. Depends on local laws, of course, but normally from what we see and from my understanding, a company can easily fight this, especially against an individual where it's not a company releasing a similar product. Sony can step forward and say, look, on good faith, we know we can release this product and we have all this product history surrounding it, and so that's why it would make sense. They can easily fight this, so I don't think this is really something where, oh, this is why Sony's not talking about PlayStation 5 in India. If it is, that would be strange because I feel like they could easily get over this hurdle, although it is still very important that they do have PS5 under their name and not somebody else, whether it's an individual or a company. Now, on Wednesday, we went over the announcement about how PSN trophy levels were changing and that there was a new value system being put in place, and the level range is now 1 to 999. Sony announced that they would be pushing this out to users in North America that night, and then the following day in Europe. There are still some people that haven't been updated yet, but actually, as of filming this video, I just got updated. So when I started filming, I was level 36, but now I'm 475. So I finally got it a little bit late, and I'm a little disappointed. I thought I was going to be higher, I'm not going to lie. But anyway, we actually know what is going on behind the scenes now. So Nathaniel John over on psnprofiles.com did some quick reverse engineering based off of old profiles and the current change. And so what we learned is that the only thing that changed in the point value of trophies is the platinum. So the platinum is worth more. Gold, silver, bronze, still the same. And the leveling curve is still the same. So on the old system, as an example, you can get to level 10, 11, 12 very quickly, but once you got up to like level 20 and above, that's where it really tapers off, takes a lot of platinums just for the next level up, and it's not really smooth from that point forward. You have a big jump, and then you reach this weird soft level cap, more or less, and that's the same thing with this larger system. So you can get up to level 200 very fast, but then it tapers off to get to 300, 400, so on and so forth. And so that's disappointing, although because platinums are worth more and the previous ones are the same, if this metric was applied to the old system, you would just gain more levels depending on how many platinums you have. The platinum's worth more, so I enjoyed that still, and I know a lot of people are still going, what's the point? I can tell you, I still prefer having a larger range of numbers because whether it's the same curve or not, at least you're in a situation now where most people are a different level. Back then, I mean, everyone was either 13, 14, 15, and chances are you had a lot of the same numbers being thrown around, but with something like this, you level up faster, so it feels like you're getting more done, and there's a wider range of, there's a large difference between users now, so even though not much has really changed, I still prefer this over nothing, right? If anything, what really bothers me, and I don't ever expect this to be a problem for me, but you went from 1 to 100 to 1 to 999. Why would you not make it 1 to 1,000? 100, nice round number. If you ever hit that, it looks great. But 999, really? You couldn't make 1,000? That's going to look so dumb for the people that immediately max it out, which some people have because they have that many trophies and platinums. That irks me more than anything else. Why is it not 1,000? Anyway, it's time to get to Let's Talk Plus, the weekly Let's Talk PlayStation giveaway where one of you could win a $10 PSN code. I would like to congratulate this viewer right here. I'll be contacting you very soon via email or Twitter. If you would like to win a $10 PSN code, it's very easy. Follow the link down below. Supporting this channel a number of ways can gain you an entry, and I'll announce the winner next week because I'm trying to pay for your games. Those are all the news stories that I want to talk about with you all. Sunday was the Try PS5 week coverage and then the UI stuff. Wednesday was the teardown video and then the trophy announcement. Coming up, we've got a Monday, Wednesday upload pending whatever Sony does for PS5 stuff. Since we're so close, it's really on their timetable more than anything else at this point. So whenever I can squeeze in an oddball upload, I'll try and do that. But of course, we're playing it by ear. That's it, though. That concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you all next Friday.